What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning back in to another fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying up this indicator mayfly. If you fish a lot of dry dropper rigs, this is definitely a fly to have in your box. So we're going to get a fresh hook in the vise and we'll get right into this tutorial. So the hook we have in the vise right now is our Fiend 350D. This is our barbless dry fly hook. This one is in a size 12. The thread we're going to be using is just some GSP. This right here is just some Veevus 50D GSP. If you don't tie with GSP, UTC 70 denier in a cream or a white would be a good alternative. So I'm going to start my thread right on this hook shank behind that hook eye. I'm going to bring my thread down to about where the barb would be, and we're going to be tying in our tail. And for our tail, we're just going to be using some Coq De Leon. I really like this for my dry fly mayfly tails. I found that this is a really good, strong fiber. It's not going to rip out on you after a couple fish. So I'm going to tie that in the full body's length. I want to make sure that's just right on top of that shank. Now I can bring my thread up, tying down those butt sections. Then I can just cut those out. Now our next material we'll be tying in is our rib, and for our rib we're just going to be using some UTC small ultra wire. This is in a silver, and you can also use flash if you don't want to put too much weight on it. But I oversized my hackle a little bit, and I've never had a problem with putting this small wire on here. So I'm just going to tie that in nice and tight. Just like so. With this GSP, you can really crank down on these materials and know that they're not going to, your thread's not going to break on you. For the body, we're going to be using a turkey Biot. This is in a light Cahill color. I recently got my hands on a lot of different colors of turkey Biots. So I've been tying a lot of flies with them. I just like how they look. They're really natural segmentation in them, and I just find they're really fun to tie with. So if you've never tried tying with turkey Biots, I definitely recommend it. So I'm just gonna prep this, and these Biots have a natural curvature to them. It's like so, and I'm actually gonna tie that in facing the camera, so the curvature is facing inside of the fly. And I just find that this is the easiest way to tie them in. So I'm just going to tie that in nice and tight here. I can bring my thread back up. Now I'm going to grab my hackle pliers, and I'm going to grab the tip of this Biot, fold it over, make sure it's nice and flat, and I can start making these touching turns with the rib slightly overlapping the last one. So this is going to add that segmentation to the body. Then the wire is just going to add more strength to it. So you could fish it just like this, but just to make it a little bit more durable, I like to put that wire in, or flash. Even flash will protect that. So now I'm just going to grab this wire, come underneath that Biot, and just start making these open spiral wraps in between the ridges. There's a nice little channel there. So that's just going to keep that biot nice and tight. Just protect it a little bit more. So once I have that tied off, I can come in and just helicopter out that wire. Should helicopter out pretty easy. So for the post material, we're going to be using Antron, and we're going to be using yellow and red. So I've kind of been playing around with these colors, and I find that these two colors together, you can pretty much see this fly in all kinds of light conditions. Since I am fishing this fly very, not far away, but further than about less than 30 feet, since I can't Euro nymph a lot of slow, deep pools, that's when I nymph a dry dropper instead of using an indicator. If the regs allow me to fish 2 flies, I will just run this setup. So when you take this off the spool, you're going to take off just the regular sizing it comes off of. Then I'm going to cut that in half, and when I'm tying these in just a regular parachute type fly, I will just double it over once, put it in, and use that for the post. But for this, we're going to be using 2 doubled over, and the reason for that is I just want this to be a little bit more visible. So that's why I double it over twice. So I'm just going to put these together, and I'm going to try to keep these split. I don't want these to blend too much. So I'm just going to put those right on top here. Make a nice loose wrap. Make a couple. Then you can just pull down on that. Tighten it down. This is the tricky part. If you've tied parachutes before, you know that it takes some time to know how to tie these in. So I'm just making wraps up this, and the easiest way that I find to do it is you'll wrap loose, hold the post with your left hand, and just pull on that thread, and it tightens up relatively nice. So I usually go up about an eye's length, just enough for about 3 wraps of Hackle. Then you can kind of just cut out that excess stuff. Just like so. Now we're going to tie in our Hackle, and we're just going to be using some white dry fly Hackle. This is just a plain white, and I want this to come to about the back of that body, just like so. So I'm going to tie this in. Some people tie this in when they tie in their post. I personally like to tie it in after I tie in my post, because I like to really crank down on my post so I know it's not going to go anywhere. And sometimes if you pull too hard on this stem, it'll break through it. So I just like to put this in after. So I'm just going to put that right there, use my finger to grab it, just hold it in place, then take those turns down and secure it. I can just come in and cut that little stem out, just like so. Perfect. So for the thorax, we're just going to be using a little bit of UV Hare Dubbing Plus. This is a dubbing by Hemingways. I've been tying with a lot of these Hemingway products. I get a lot of my products now through Frosty Fly. Since they're Canadian, they ship right to my door for relatively cheap, as much as you would pay in a any tackle store. So if you are in Canada and want to get some realistic fly tying stuff, or anything Veevus, fly tying tools, they have a Stonefo. I definitely recommend checking them out. I'll leave a link in the description as well. So I'm just going to put a really slender noodle on this, since we're not building up a huge thorax. Just like so. Now I'm going to take my thread and make a turn around this post. The reason for that is so when I'm wrapping my hackle down, my thread is already going to be there ready to come around and capture that. And I actually whip finish on the post, so it leaves you with a nice neat head. You don't have a huge bump, and it's also easier so you don't have to get underneath the hackle at the front and try to throw in a whip finish and get these hackle fibers all tangled. So I'm just going to make 1, 2, 3 wraps there. And I'm going to come underneath that with my thread. And since I had it sitting there, it was easy to grab it. Now I'm just going to come with my scissors, and I'm going to get underneath here and cut out the stem to this hackle. And I'm still holding on to my thread just so it doesn't unwind on me. And instead of actually whip finishing this thread here, what I like to do is grab a little bit of gel super glue. This is a Gorilla Glue, and it's a gel, and I prefer the gel over the other stuff just because it's not going to run down your thread and it kind of stays where you put it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this on my thread here. You don't need much, about just enough to wrap it around once or twice. Now I'm going to try to come underneath all this without getting super glue on that hackle, just like so. I'm just going to hold that for a second till it dries, then I can cut out my thread. I've never had hackle come out on me while doing this technique. I actually got the technique from Cheech from Fly Fish Food. He just puts it in the back here with a needle, but I actually like to wrap it around the whole thing. So shout out to Cheech for the super glue skills. Let's get that off there. Now as far as this this post goes, it's all personal preference. Depending on how good your vision is, how far you can see, you can leave this, you know, like a 1/2 inch high. This little piece of glue's there. You could leave this a 1/2 inch high. I like to have it about the length of the whole overall fly, maybe a little less. Just like that. Just kind of hard to cut through all that Antron. You can kind of just clean that up a bit. That's usually how high I like to have it. Since I'm not making super far casts, I'm usually just fishing this in kind of slower water that I can't Euro nymph, and that I would need to pull out an indicator. And yeah, this is an awesome alternative if you fish dry droppers. So tie a couple up. Like I said, this is kind of my favorite color combo. I can see it in all kinds of light situations. I've tried pink, I've tried chartreuse, tried just all red, just all one colors, and I've always kind of came back to this color. So if you fish a lot of dry droppers, give this fly a go. You can change up the body to any type of mayfly you're trying to imitate. But I hope you liked today's tutorial, guys. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see all the list of materials, you can check that down in the description below. If you want to purchase this fly, you can check out my website at theflyfiend.com. I've kind of been slowly adding some flies on there, so if you are interested in buying flies, you can check that out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Thanks a lot again for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.